Impressive.
Today I'm going back playing Quake Champions that was released in 2017, developed by ID Software, Saber Interactive and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game is available on PC via Steam, it's free to play, and it hasn't been ported for console since an early statement claimed that it was due to hardware limitations. But could that be possible to do now in 2023? Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Even though this is a game I haven't played that much, I still wanted to see how Quake Champions is doing in 2023 when it comes to interest from players, meaning player count, but also if a somewhat classic arena shooter still has a place in 2023 during a time where tactical shooters and battle royale titles are mostly dominating the FPS scene. Because even if a lot of today's games has gotten quite some inspiration from iconic shooters such as Quake, Doom and Unreal Tournament, it does seem as if the past years have been hard when it comes to establishing a fast-paced arena shooter among free-to-play battle royale titles. So is a game such as Quake Champions and other similar games just for a few chosen, you might say, in 2023? Well, the first thing that gets to me when coming back playing Quake Champions is the fact that it is a steep and hard learning curve to get into the game, especially if you've never played similar shooters before. Add to that some really good players that have mastered the movement and the gunplay in the game, or even one or two veterans that used to play the older Quake or Doom games as well, and you will have both a hard and sweaty time to maybe motivate yourself to continue to play the game. Because Quake Champions is old school, even though some veterans partly disagree, since there are differences between this somewhat newer title in comparison with the older games in the series. But from a newcomer's perspective or a younger player that might be used to play newer games that somewhat holds your hand a bit, supporting you to a certain extent by having game mechanics that might even give the noob a chance to get a moment in the spotlight, might get a hard time initially to understand what the heck is going on in fast-paced shooters such as Quake Champions. But to be fair, I like that, because today a lot of games has become so mainstream, trying to please as many players as possible at the same time with various backgrounds as gamers, and that mindset has been taken so far that some titles just end up being boring and dumb, especially if you're like me, a somewhat experienced FPS player. It's therefore somewhat refreshing to see that Quake Champions puts focus on performance and skill, something you don't just get, but something you earn by playing the game over and over again. Because why should everything be served at your feet all the time? I mean, we need some friction and challenge in order to improve and become better, because then and only then the reward when you start to do well and win matches for your team becomes so much more worth it. But with all that said, is a game like Quake Champions worth playing in 2023, about 6 years after release and decades after the genre had its golden days as a top performing genre in the world of FPS? In order to answer that question, I believe we should start by taking a look at the active amount of players in the Steam charts. As I expected, this is a game for a selected few, as I would like to call it, since there's around 300 players or 350 players on average playing the game the last 3 to 4 months. These are numbers that I see quite often when checking out how other older games are doing about 5-6 years after they were released. So I would therefore call it a kind of an average result, if you want, or stats when it comes to player count. Most of the time means that you'll be able to get matches or get into matches without having to wait for a very long time. A good idea is to choose to play practice, which is basically humans versus bots, where the matchmaker will replace the bots with real players in your team when playing, if people decide to join. It is a pretty good way to train your movement and aim before you get into the real deal, so to say. There's also some guides in the menu that you might want to read through in order to get some tips and understanding of the game as well. Not to mention videos and tutorials on YouTube as well. When choosing this game mode, you're able to play Team Deathmatch, Clan Arena, Capture the Flag, Slipgate and Sacrifice. Again, a pretty good way to prepare yourself to play PvP. So what can you expect when playing Quake Champions? It is fast-paced and movement is key here. I'm personally not near to master good Quake movement, but I tried as much as I could to keep up with some of the good players I was facing, and I was able to come out on top once in a while. I would say that's mainly thanks to many years of FPS gaming overall, when it comes to decent aim and the possibility to sometimes pull off flick shots and similar. Because most of the action and gunfights does take place when moving, of course, which means a combination of pressing keys on your keyboard when it comes to WASD keyboard keys in conjunction with your mouse, and at the same time jumping by pressing spacebar, at least with default keyboard settings or bindings. In Quake Champions, you are able to play with different characters with different abilities, which is appreciated by some, but not for everyone or not by everyone, since it wasn't a thing in older Quake games. This is a topic or a discussion of its own, since there's a lot of different opinions circulating about this design choice. I guess it was a way to follow the trend a bit at the time, and also still in 2023, when giving the player abilities when it comes to their characters. Does it have a place in a game series like Quake? And do you like it or not? Well, let me know in the comments. There was still updates being made by the devs last year from what I can see when visiting the website, but I'm not sure how much new content that are being added into the game any longer, so it would be nice to hear from you guys that are playing the game what you think about the overall development now in 2023 when it comes to Quake Champions. So how is Quake Champions doing in 2023? As said, it is a game that takes skill to master, and it therefore might shy away some casual players foremost that just, are enjoying playing a game or two during the weekends. You are of course better off if you have an experience of similar arena shooters if you decide to give Quake Champions a go in 2023. But it is possible to get into the game as an overall noob as well, although the climb will be longer and steeper. The low player count is an indication about what I talked about initially as well, since the genre of arena shooters and Quake-like shooters aren't as popular as before. Although we've seen some streamers and indie game developers trying to boost some life and energy into the genre as well. Is Quake Champions fun to play? Yes, it is, if you like this concept of a shooter and if you're willing to take on a bit of a challenge in order to play a shooter that is competitive in its nature. With that said, I would like to hear from you. Doesn't matter if you played the game before or not, what are your thoughts and maybe experiences? So thanks for watching my Quake Champions video now in 2023, and if you like FPS gaming overall, you might consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out when I check out another old or new FPS game. So take care and have a great day. Later, bye.